All right, I think it's back. My internet's just been bad, and I don't know if it's my internet this time. It might be my Wi-Fi card is dying, which I'm almost positive it is. I'm sorry that it keeps going in and out. I will get that fixed eventually, hopefully. I don't like you. It basically cuts the stream and doesn't come back. Whereas on some of the other platforms, it it'll bring the stream back immediately. But YouTube does that because it immediately turns your stream into a video. Oh, come on. Did this stream just go out again? Please. Please no. Did it give out again? Working, just barely. Okay, and I'm gonna grab the mid color right here. Keep going. Also, I'm really glad there's not too many people here on Valentine's Day because that means you guys aren't alone. And that I'm glad you guys aren't alone. So that sucks. This looks like a burger with butter on it. Don't worry, it'll look better later. And turn some music on. Hopefully that works. I'm gonna push my chat box down a little bit again. I just remembered why I had it like that. There we go. And my internet is Just barely hanging on. Okay. I'm just gonna guess the butter up here. The other thing is you're not always gonna match color with the. What you want to learn to do is it's just that you're learning to look at it and say this is darker and more saturated and this is lighter and less saturated or something than the image, and learn how to identify that sort of look and feel. Just gonna quickly turn on my Alright. It looks like my internet stabilized a little bit. So. And once again, if you do want to draw, feel free to draw with me, because that's kind of some of the point. I'm just going to correct this butter a little. If you don't want to show anybody, that's fine. If you want to, you can post it on my Discord, where sometimes people talk about it. Conan, I'm sorry you can't play Conan. I'm going to be playing that later today. We played it, me and husband played it when it came out, but it had more updates since, so. I want to beat it, or whatever. I don't know if you can beat it, but complete it. So I'm once again looking and making sure. Why is this see-through? You see that? Should have. Oh, there we go. So I think that mostly looks like it right now. Already these look like pancakes, I think. A little bit like a burger, but also like pancakes. And now I'm going to kind of block in some of the more refined colors. So if you notice, it does get very reddish. So I'm looking for the colors right here. Specifically this kind of burnt, or not burnt, but like more darkish area, which I've noticed is quite dark. And so I'm trying to find what that color looks like. So it's close, but it's probably more red and probably actually a little darker. So I think that's pretty close to what that is, maybe a little lighter. I like the darker. And I'm just gonna put that on with probably a more textured brush, because you notice it's not 100% there. Yes? No, it's fine. No, it's working now.
Okay.
The other thing is I noticed there's kind of this ring where if you cook pancakes, it's like due to like usually butter and oil on the pan, you get a heavier ring like that. I think I still went too dark. I think a nice lighter red would look better. And then this part is actually more the bready. area. I'm even going to start lowering my lines so I don't see them as much. The way I work to get rid of line art is I just kind of use it at first and then it just slowly don't use it anymore. And that's how I do it. So I've noticed when I first put color on, it's close, but it's usually wrong and I have to fix it later, and that's okay. It's fine to fix color later. Don't worry too much about it not being 100%. As you get more of it done, you'll notice, oh, this in comparison to this doesn't quite look right, even though, because I don't have anything to compare to right now. So I'm just trying to get something on there to compare it to. And you notice there's like this little section right here. Oh, I can't circle it because of my layer. I might go and what about this? Ooh. I don't like how it changes though. Let's see if I can do it with the rough one. The real pencil might have a good texture to it too. Oh yeah. I'll probably put that on later. I'm gonna it's hard because I want some of those light sections to really pop through, but at the same time, I don't know. It's probably too textured to use right away until I've got some of the stuff on top of it. So this is really dark back there, so it's probably too dark. No, it's not dark enough. It's like a dark. I'm gonna block some of this in a little faster so I can start working with it. I can bring the colors back in if I kind of get rid of it too quickly. So I always struggled to explain, I think, why you shouldn't use black, but I think I've kind of figured out why you have to be careful using black to make shadows. Because people, always ask me, people start asking me to like tell them about drawing, and I'm like, oh, please don't use black, and they're like, why not? Because everyone wants to use black when they first start drawing to do shadows, and they always want, I get people who are a little uppity, and they're always like, why can't I use black? Well, what reason? I'm like, well, it just looks bad. I don't really know how to explain it, but I've figured it out a bit more, and it's when you combine colors and you start using black for shadows and you have like a color up here, it immediately goes this way towards your triangle. In fact, I'd even say it just starts to go like, straight into the black really fast rather than sometimes going like this direction or this direction. So your combo immediately gets what people call muddy colors, where instead of this, notice how it's transitioning into this red for the darks, and then it doesn't really go black. And so if you were to use black as a shadow on this, it's muddy. It doesn't retain its color. It gets icky and gross really fast if you were to use a black shadow. It doesn't really represent what's happening over here that well. I mean, it's kind of close if you were to use it a little bit, but I think you lose a lot of the color, whereas if you were to use a bit more color, you would retain some of that sort of reddish, because red light is bouncing around in this image. I do notice this isn't very red right here, so it'd probably be okay with a more duller color, but that's why you don't use black for shadows. Just if you've ever wondered, your colors get muddy too fast. I now know how to answer that. You lose saturation much too quick. We can't celebrate very much right now for Valentine's Day, so we didn't do anything. I actually won this time. Sorry, it's not a competition, but you know, it kind of is. And I got him the gummies he really likes. So yeah, we've never had a history of doing anything huge on Valentine's Day, because it's so annoying. I don't like fighting people in public for spaces. And then right now, like, you can't do anything because it's COVID. So we didn't do a lot. I feel like this is more of a... I guess you could say I'm not a big celebrator of Valentine's Day, but I don't know. We spent some. We're gonna play Conan later. That we've been wanting to play Conan. I was like, I gotta do the stream, so I'm doing the stream, and then I get to play Conan all day. And we usually do more stuff at night too together. So. The other thing I think this type of a drawing session is good for is I just wasn't used to using texture brushes, and I'm starting to feel like a lot more comfortable using these types of brushes, just because you kind of have to spend time working with a certain brush or whatever until you're used to it, and then you're like, oh, I feel really good using this brush. What the heck? Oh. So I know there's syrup. I'm gonna actually get to the syrup. For some reason, I just feel like I should draw the stuff on top first, and then I'll go do the syrup. Or the stuff beneath it. I guess it's beneath, huh? Let me rephrase. The stuff beneath. I don't know why. I obviously don't draw. I used to draw from life more in school, but like I didn't that much. Like I never did like coloring. I always did sketching from life. So I'm not actually all that great at life drawing. So what you're watching is me also kind of learning how to do it, because I knew what you should do, if that makes sense, but I never really practiced drawing from life. There's not a lot stopping. Well, I didn't have money in college. I was kind of really poor, and I just went to the labs and borrowed the equipment, which means I couldn't draw from life. And I didn't know how to draw digitally very well because it was hard. It's actually hard to draw digitally. I think it's easier to draw, maybe not paint. I think painting could be harder, but sketching, I have more control over my hands than I do a screen. So a lot of drawing these types of things, by the way, are just like fucking rendering the details for hours. Just so you know, I find that I can quickly get the block in done, and then I'm like, oh, I get a render for like ever. Great. I love that. Not really. I don't have very good patience for drawing from life, if you want to know. If you haven't been able to tell yet. I spend a lot of time just picking from my own colors too, by the way. There's nothing wrong with that. If you actually paint, you actually kind of do that a little bit too. I don't paint a lot, but it's similar. Well, that's kind of my darkest. There's some darks here, and then there's really dark. I don't think images often actually hit black as much as I use in drawings, but I'm just going to put that in there. And then this isn't white, so I'm just going to show it to you. I'm going to guess it's up here, so almost white. Oh, hey, it is. It was right there. Oh, wait. Oh, no, let me click it. Ooh, it's quite pink, actually. Interesting. It's up there, though. It's not white. Even this butter's not white. This is probably almost white right here. Yeah. So, going off that, I'm going to select it. And I had a good guess. See, it looks really pink to me now that I'm drawing it on there, so I'd prefer it. This is also where you can't always color pick, because if you're going by your own colors that you've been using, I think actually some of the fun of drawing is kind of pushing so your shadows to be a certain way and your halftones. Hopefully if you do drawing, you've looked up what those mean. I don't want to explain them a lot. Your highlight, halftone, core cast shadow, and pushing. I think some of the fun of drawing is pushing those. I'm going to get this pencil out and get that. The texture's not enough. It's not. I actually have more brushes. I've put them in the chat. I can repost them again. I have all these cool shapes. That could actually be cool for that. That just let you do textures. I like to use these dirt ones because they have very blocky textures. One of the dirt ones works really well for bread. I remember I was using... Well, a super dry bristle probably works well too. I wonder if I can get... Just because I don't like... I personally don't want to draw... If you really wanted to, you could go and draw each of these little pieces of texture on a shine. I don't want to. I don't want to do it. If I was doing an assignment for a teacher, I'd probably do it though, because I'm like, I have to get an A. But and just to you know, I'm competitive. I gotta get the best grade. But in general, I wouldn't do that on my own drawings because I don't give a shit. Because I don't think people would, because you know, a teacher would compare it to the initial drawing and be like, oh, you were lazy here. So I know they would do that, but like on my own drawings, I know that no one's gonna see the, you know, I usually don't post the reference image. I mean, maybe if I did, I still wouldn't do it. Because I personally want to learn how to use the texture brush. Because if I do my own drawings from my head, I don't have a reference image that I have to completely copy. So for me, learning how to use the texture brush to recreate what looks like the textures from this image, I will remember, and I'll remember to use those, and I'll feel more comfortable with the texture brushes. So that's why I personally have been trying to use these texture brushes, because I want to learn how to use them. And I'm not trying to like prove to a teacher or anything that so my goal would be different than like what a classroom teacher's goal might be. I spent way too long on these shinies, and you know what? I'm probably going to end up redoing them, and I hate that. I'm going to turn the lines down again. I probably won't do hands this time. I think I do have a suggestion for hands though. One of the reasons hands, you know, I'm gonna put a gray background on. Sorry, tangent real fast. I'll delete. Come on. There we go. Just so I can see, and then I'll paint that plate. One of the reasons hands I think are so hard is because they're actually quite detailed. So it'd be like drawing all those little pieces of fluff on bread. If you obviously just did it real quick, it wouldn't look good. So to do hands justice, you actually have to do a lot of detail. So one of the suggestions, I don't actually think hands are as hard as people make them out to be. I think they have a lot of detail. So if you try to draw them quick, they won't look good because you actually need to spend a lot of time going through the hand and making sure it looks presentable. And I feel the same way about hands I do about details, where I'm just like, oh, I have to just spend a lot of time doing this to make it even look good. And it's just this small part of the scene. But if you're struggling with hands, just say, okay, I need to spend a lot of time. Like, don't try to get these out quick. Try to get them. You're gonna have to just do it for a while. Like, you can't just get it done really fast. You're gonna have to sit down, and the hand itself is like a whole drawing. And I find that if I do that, I don't struggle as bad with hands. Yeah, the other suggestion I have is don't draw the same size as the image. Usually draw it bigger. The image you're practicing on. So the weird thing about these, like, kind of, I don't want to call them burn spots, but the spots over here, the cooked spots, can I call them cooked spots? It's like they're brown, but then they transition to like a red and then a gold, and then the white, which is a very interesting spread of colors to run through. Man, fruits are so much easier to draw. That's why we did fruit first. All these like actual baked things have a lot of detail on them. Sometime, you know what we should do? which should be fun. Some quick drawings where it has to get done quickly. So we're not rendering all the details out, because I hate that. And also because there's something to be learned in a fast drawing. The other thing that you want to focus on while you're drawing is, especially with these, is how hard and soft is an edge. So some edges are really hard. I think when I see a lot of beginner artists, they want to draw, I want to draw real. So they draw their edges very soft. They do too many soft edges. Like right now my drawing is quite soft edged, and you have to learn how to kind of go in, and that's why I tell people, go a little harder edge than you think it would be. Like, don't be afraid to learn how to put those in. Testing out my brushes real fast. I think I always like one of the dry bristles. Probably this one. Let's see what that color, yeah, actually is. Oh, it's really desaturated. So I've been trying to go really dark here, but it's actually lighter and desaturated, which looks really weird on my piece. So I can see it right here being pretty extreme. Well, if you want to draw, then draw. That's the only info I can give you, and draw to practice. You don't always have to draw to practice, but if you've never done that, start doing that. You can start it now, and you'll be able to draw comics. Don't start with your first big comics. Start with some easier things, and see if you can work your way into doing larger comics. Start with some small comics. Start with, if you don't know how to draw very well, start with practicing sketching and the form. See if you can get gestures down, and then draw. Do a lot of drawing. I wanted to draw this because the syrup was translucent, and I kind of like drawing translucent things because they're hard. It's viscous too, so it's a little bit thick unlike like water and stuff. So that's why it's really cool. I love it, but I hate it, but I love it. Yeah, I didn't start with comics, by the way, right off the bat at all. I'm just gonna say that. I did not at all. I started with um like I started with small comics. You can see them. They don't have very good paneling. A lot of things not good about them. And I wasn't focusing on that at the time. I was seeing if I could draw art that would work for comics. Man, I was hoping these pancakes wouldn't have so much texture, but they do. Fuck. I don't like drawing texture because it takes forever and it's annoying. I'm going to draw that syrup on top. It's kind of this color, right? A little darker. Yeah. And then it gets saturated in the middle. Yeah, when I first started, I just did small jokes. Because I definitely wanted to do comics, but I was like, I don't, you have that feeling where you don't know where to start, and you think, oh, I'm just putting it off because I'm lazy. But actually, what that feeling is like, I don't have experience in this, and I actually don't know where to start. And I do feel pretty good about drawing, but I don't, usually, I felt okay about drawing. I obviously wasn't that good yet, but I was like, I don't actually know how to panel and stuff, so what I would suggest to do is small jokes. See if you can learn how to do panel flow and actually do some research while you're doing it to see if you can tell sequential jokes, because sequential art, which is paneling art and like kind of storyboarding and stuff, has a similar feel to it that is, it's not easy to do. It's actually a whole skill is using panels to tell a story. It's its own skill that's separate from like drawing the form and anatomy and stuff like that. So you actually have to learn how to do that, and you have to practice that. It's so I'm going like really saturated here if you don't notice. I just want to push it a little. I think I want to make my drawings more beautiful than the beautiful photos they come from, because these are gorgeous food photos. Like, if people call it a beautiful image, you have to say, well, obviously, the photographer lit, one of the reasons I do these pictures, the photographer lit this beautifully, and then set up the picture to make it look tasty and yummy. And so in some ways, you're taking the art from that photographer and recreating it. So it's not like it's 100% your own. But that's also why we do it, because they light it well, and lighting is a huge part of beautiful images. So if you notice, there's like a highlight with a slight bit of that melted syrup coloring right underneath it. So I'm going to actually just push it a little darker right there, and then I'm going to put that highlight in. I would not suggest completely trying to find your style, by the way. I see that a lot, and I don't know why that's such a common term, trying to find my style. Style comes from problem solving, and how you understand the techniques of art. So your style will just naturally come out. That's just what happens. And what it is your brain, when you start to get really good at art and start to go beyond just like struggling to get the foundation out, your brain will start to say, okay, I want to draw this thing and I want it to look a certain way to say a certain thing, such as like I'm drawing a cat and I want this image to feel really warm and snuggly or whatever, you know. So you're drawing the cat and you use certain techniques to push that feeling into that image. And the way you choose to display those techniques is your style. That's it. So what style is I have a problem, which is I would like to make this image cuddly and nice, displaying this cat. And how you choose to stylize or to recreate maybe the fur on the cat, or how you're doing it, mixed with how you're lighting it, how the pose of the cat, all of that is your style, and it will just come out. You're not like saying, oh, I need to draw it this way because it's my style. That's not how you draw. You just say, it just comes out because you're trying to do a certain thing with it, and you don't even have to force style out usually at all. Or like you're drawing like a cool picture of a fight scene. You're like, I want this to look super cool. And so you use a lot of jagged lines and you use them in a certain way to make the picture look really cool. And that is what style is. So you don't really have to find your style. What I would suggest you should do is work on your art techniques, and your style will just come out as you learn more and more art. Like, learn how to be like, oh, you see an artist you like, you're like, oh man, they drew this picture like this really well that felt really happy, and I want to draw happy pictures. Like, how did they do that? And you don't want to copy them, but you'll be like, okay, I like how they did that, but I'm going to do it this way because I want to draw even happier or something. And that's style. That's how style works. It's how you choose to solve those artistic problems. I'm using J right now. I don't use it very often, but to just blend some of these in, because this is very soft and smooth. And then I'm going to go back in and like add some more of this, and then smoothen it out, because it's very saturated in the middle, I think. But I want to keep that sharp edge on my highlights, so if you notice, I don't touch that. If you don't have access to a lot of texture brushes, by the way, something you can do is lower the opacity on something you hopefully is textury, and it should blend a little bit. You definitely want to get some blending when you're doing this type of drawing, where it's not putting on a 100% it's not putting on 100% of the inks that you're using, or the color. I'm just gonna get rid of my lines. I don't think I need them. If I do, I can turn them back on. So. I've noticed right here there's kind of a desaturated yellow. I might have gone too far, but maybe it's a little saturated. It's definitely darker, but I think one of the things I need to learn how to do is in my cartoon drawings, I almost never use very desaturated colors. I love bright colors. I could get a bit better at that. I know Horror Sands I use a lot of desaturated, but that's like the only thing I use them on because he's got that dirty desaturated look to him. This is interesting because right here, up here, you got like, the syrup isn't very viscous because it's kind of melted into the pancake a little bit. You got this area where the pancake is darker because the syrup has absorbed into it a little bit. Yellow also always looks really dirty really fast if you combine it with black, by the way. It's one of those colors where, so each color has, you know, maximum saturation, which is this peak right here. Now this triangle isn't always accurate because I would say, let me try it real fast. So yellow is kind of more like this shape, where the maximum saturation happens at a very high key. So if this is white up here and this is black and this is maximum yellow, it happens at like this kind of gray, light gray area. Whereas like blue, I would say blue happens like the opposite, where it's like down here, where the maximum saturation of blue is very much like at this dark gray color. You got black here, you got white. And then for red, it's kind of in the middle. If you've ever used like paints, so that one's in the middle. And so that's something to keep track of. So when you're using yellow, you're kind of right here is a little bit more middle than you like lower than middle than you think it is. Like if you were to use max saturation yellow versus max saturation red versus max saturation blue, I wonder what would happen. Let's see what happens if we put a saturation filter over it. Yeah, see, there you go. If you look, if I take the color off, if you look right here, the yellow is quite light for middle, and the blue, or the, is that blue or no? The red's in the middle, and the blue is dark. Even though when I switched around, it was technically the same spot on the triangle. Just they're different. So that's something you should kind of know that happens with color. It's sneaky like that. And then obviously each color has its own kind of sweet spot where it's max saturated at a different value than other colors. And yellow is like the lightest one, with blue being one of the darker ones. And then everything's in between. You can, in fact, have that art style. You just gotta draw. I swear. Drawing is a skill anyone can learn. It's a time-consuming skill. I think it's a great skill to learn. I have only been happy learning it. Well, sometimes you're always gonna feel a little bit like, ugh, this doesn't look good every once in a while. And that's okay. Don't let it stop you from drawing. That's not okay. Don't ever... Remember, you want to draw more than that feeling can tell you how lies about how you feel. Hopefully you want to draw more. I would assume. There's like a soggy pancake area up there. It's like a goldeny brown. Yeah. I think everyone will feel a little bad about their art every once in a while, and I think also the other thing you have to understand is, like, I didn't just start drawing and I just was okay with drawing and I was really good. I wasn't. And there were times where I felt like it wasn't very good and it would make me not want to draw. And sometimes I wouldn't draw. And I went through a period of time where I actually didn't draw for a while. But I think if you realize that if you just draw, eventually you do reach a point where when that feeling comes, because it always comes back, you'll just kind of be like, yeah, I know I felt like this before, but it's okay. You know, I'll just draw and see what happens. You'll get comfortable drawing because you'll have done it so much. And you'll get more and more comfortable with it every time. This is a lot further out. Look at that. Here's what I'm not seeing. Right here. So, like, right here, if you see that, mine doesn't hit this, like, blobule right here, and the corner of this butter kind of line up, and mine don't. So, I'm going to move it over. I just noticed that just now. That's why you look at the image, and you want to compare like I just did, and I was like, ah, that's not right. I have this little